Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. So in this video, as the title probably gives away, I'm going to ramble about an idea that has been bouncing around my head for a long time, and I've just never really, well, two things. One, I've never really done a video on it, not that I remember, and two, I haven't really fully developed the idea or how to deliver it. So this video could be trash, but I want to talk about the concept of evergreen knives. Now, evergreen or evergreen products is a concept in the manufacturing world where it's something that you continually produce in a lineup, something that doesn't, essentially you don't ever stop producing it, right? And when it comes to knife companies specifically, there are evergreen products that are done, it seems like for some companies intentionally. Actually, I know some companies intentionally, and for some companies it's done simply because the model continues to sell. So what's the importance of an evergreen product within a knife company's lineup? Now, this doesn't pertain to custom knives, really. Not so much. This pertains primarily to production knives or manufactured knives. And so the concept is really well presented by these 6 knives in front of us, and I have a few more off camera. But let's start with the Benchmade 940. Now, Benchmade actually has quite a few different evergreen products. The Benchmade 940, the 940-1, the Mini Griptilian, the Large Griptilian. Honestly, there's more. In fact, the majority of Benchmade's lineup could potentially be considered an evergreen. But what happens is when someone says, hey, you know what, I've seen that Benchmade company and I kind of want to try one of their products, what should I try? Whether they ask on forums or people who make videos or friends or people in the know, whoever it is they ask, I guarantee that the product that's going to be recommended is always going to be one of their staples, one of their evergreens. Like, again, the Benchmade 940, one of my absolute favorite designs, and a design that, quite honestly, if you like the size and the specs and everything, it's a model that I would absolutely recommend without question, because it does have a long-standing history of performance, of use, of abuse. It stood the test of time. So, you know, again, the Griptilian or the Mini Griptilian is also something else that not only would I recommend, but I bought the Mini Griptilian, actually, I can't remember the first one. So I bought Griptilians for family members twice now. Once for my brother-in-law, once for my dad. So, you know, and it's going to be the same thing with some of these other companies too, like Kershaw, for instance. Maybe not this exact configuration, but if you say, hey, I really want to try Kershaw, and we won't get into speed safe or manual, but what would be a good model to try? The Dividend is always going to be a very strong recommendation. So many people have owned it, used it, abused it, sent it in for warranty. I mean, it stood the test of time. It's a good design, and this configuration right here is really, really cool. Perhaps the most iconic, and again, not necessarily this configuration, but the Sebenza 21. Someone says, hey, you know what? I want to try a Chris Reeve knife. What should I get? The answer is always, well, okay. And again, we can argue about this. I get that. But the answer primarily is get a Sebenza 21. You'll get to see what the brand is all about. And you may start with the 21 and then you end up getting an Umnumzon and an Nkosi, a tie lock. You may end up with one of their older fixed blades, but the gateway drug, the first thing to try, the top recommendation is, in my opinion, always going to be a Sebenza 21. And even though they've released the 31, which is slightly different, it's still the same DNA, and so the product or the recommendation, the idea, the design, everything lives on in it. Another one, the Spyderco Paramilitary 2. Someone says, hey, I need to try a Spyderco. Spyderco's got a lot of evergreens, Delica, Endura, the Native, the Paramilitary 2. I mean, they honestly have a ton in its models that they're going to always continually produce. Now, a newer entrant is going to be things from ZT, like the 450. And again, not this really cool factory custom one, but a plain Jane ZT 450 carries a very strong recommendation from just about anybody who's owned it. Someone says, hey, you know what, I really want to try ZT. Which one should I get? I can, without question, knowing it's still in production, say, hey, the 450, if you like a little bit smaller ZT, the 450 is hands down the one that I would recommend. You want to go for a little bit bigger? Well, then the model that they've been producing for a long time and hopefully will continue to produce is the model, the ZT0562. This one is the carbon fiber, but again, this model as a whole has always carried a very strong recommendation from everyone who's tried it. And if you want to try ZT, definitely give this one a go. And so that's really the concept of an Evergreen product. Is it's the gateway drug to that company. It's the one that people are always going to recommend. They're always going to try, and if people like it, then they'll venture out and they'll try a lot of other products. I think some of the keys to some of the things that are important for Evergreen products to have is honestly going to be price, right? When the Para 2 came into when it became super popular and everyone had to have it and they were going for more on secondary and all that craziness, the initial price for the G10 version was $110. And at $110, it's like, okay, you know what? A little bit more than I'd normally spend, but I need to see what the fuss is all about. And then again, you fall in love with that model, and then all of a sudden you're buying, majorly upstream in terms of price, Spyderco's, because you like this, you want to try them out. So one other company that kind of utilizes an Evergreen product is going to be a company like Koenig. They have the Arius, they've continued to produce it, they've continued to refine and improve it, but if you want to see what Koenig is all about, it's got to be the Arius. And granted, they're doing a smaller version too, which is honestly needed at this point because it's just such a good knife, a good design, such good quality. So along those lines, what are some companies that aren't doing a good job of producing this Evergreen product and is probably hurting them in the long run? And for the most part, it's definitely going to be companies that are overseas. So, again, Riot Knives, one of my favorite production companies. They do an amazing job. For a long time, they had a model called the Hills. It was, I think it was $200. Wasn't the most attractive design, but it was an outstanding performer. It had an action unlike anything else at the time for that price point. Maybe it was less than $200. Anyways, a lot of us got started with the Riot Hills. It was their model that got people in the gate, kept them coming back, got a lot of new people to try it, and really helped the brand to grow and to develop. These days, Riot produces a lot of really good stuff, but their models have very short lives. And so they may only have something in production for 6 months to a year, and then it's gone. And it's like, hey, which model would you recommend? And you're like, well, they don't really have a model in the $200 price point anymore, one that you can try and decide if you like the brand. And so it makes it a lot harder for individuals, again, friends and people on the forums, what have you, to really give a strong recommendation to one design. I think that the Riot Mini Horizon D here is capable of being an Evergreen. I think it distills everything from their Horizon line, which was the first model that they released under their brand, and kind of brings it to a usable, wonderful size package that really shows off the machining capabilities and the action. So my vote would probably be this one. Or bring back a different iteration of the Hills that's again more price competitive. Having a really expensive one, really expensive price point only works in a few instances, like the Sabenza and the Arius. And for a long time, I talked to, for a long time I was kind of anti-Evergreen products because it was at a time when new stuff was coming out weekly, and I was like, you know what, don't bother making the same stuff. You got to have new stuff continually coming out so that people are excited about your offerings. But, a little, now that I'm older and not wiser, but perhaps less dumb, I really see the importance of continually producing a model that people can try and recommend to try the brand out. A really good example that I think should be one would be like the Civivi Elementum here. Again, very price conscious model, clean designs, great action, nice grinds, just a kind of an all around, does everything well type of design. It's not like it really blows you away, but you try this one, you think, hey, you know what, this isn't half bad. I want to try some other stuff from the Civivi label. And then I'm going to jump into the Wii label, the more expensive upstream, because I've had really good luck with Civivi, but it was this model, the Elementum, that got me in the door and got me to take a chance, right? It's that concept of, what's the risk of trying it out? Can I always resell it? And, again, the Sebenza 21, the archetype here, that's what it's always done really well. People are like, should I try Chris Reeve? Yes, get the Sebenza. Why should I get the Sebenza? If you don't like it, you can always turn around and sell it for essentially what you paid for it. I don't know how true that is anymore. I haven't really followed secondary on these anymore because I have my favorite version of the 21. I haven't really kept looking. But anyways, kind of the concept holds true. So, yeah. So I mean that's kind of the thoughts that jump around in my head. It's some companies do it really, really well, and other companies don't do it well, and I think it's to their detriment. Now, here's the trade-off in manufacturing. If a product isn't moving, if a product isn't selling well anymore, then why would you continue to make it when that same machine time could be devoted to a new product that's going to potentially sell better? And I get that, and again, I've talked to, various companies, large and small, and that really is the trade-off. But I think the companies that are able to do it either out of just sheer popularity, continuing to going forward, or companies that make a conscious effort to do it, I think in the long run, they'll be rewarded, and it really helps to instill consumer confidence that, this company is going to be around. They're not gonna be gone in a couple of years. This design, I'll be able to get support for it, and yeah. So again, the Sebenza 21 just continues to evoke all of those principles in perhaps the most viewable ways. So clean design, simple, brought a lot of people into the Chris Reeve brand, and then they ended up with multiple versions of the 21. Then they tried the other models, and before you know it, they're just going crazy on Chris Reeve knives because the right one got them in the door. So anyways, that's kind of my ramble on the concept of Evergreen products. There's more by Kershaw for sure. There's so many from Benchmade. Spyderco has a ton, and these are brands that I think we all think are going to continue to be around. And you can always go back to your favorite, to the greatest hits over and over again. So again, I think this is something that perhaps some of the overseas manufacturers need to do a good job of. I think Shirogorov obviously does a pretty good job of it with the the F95 or the 95, the F3, and so on and so forth. But I don't know, agree, disagree. Let me know if it was, if kind of the concept resonates with you guys, if it makes sense, which knife got you in the door with the brand, and it's one that you always recommend to other people. I think it'll kind of make sense. So anyways, again, this is a ramble. It's just an idea that's been popping around my head. To a lot, it's common sense. To other people, perhaps they're seeing it in a different light at this point. But yeah, you can follow me on Instagram for more daily content and more videos to come. I need to use my quarantine time a little bit more efficiently, so see you on the next one.